Friday, Deerfield Village in Illinois voted unanimously to outlaw possession, sale, and manufacturing of what they're calling assault weapons, many other firearms, and some magazines as well. The new ordinance also fines gun owners up to $1,000 a day if they don't turn in their weapons or get rid of them by the June 13th deadline. Now, one resident of the town and two gun owners advocacy groups are filing suit. So our legal eagles are here to break down the case. David Bruno, a criminal defense attorney who is arguing for the ban to be upheld, and Emily Campagno, a former criminal defense attorney who is arguing against the assault weapons ban. Welcome to you both.
Hi, Shannon.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to start by reading a little bit of what we've got from the Second Amendment Foundation. They're one of the plaintiffs in the case. They say this: while the village is trying to disguise this as an amendment to an existing ordinance, it is in fact a new law that entirely bans possession of legally owned semi-auto firearms, with no exception for guns previously owned or any provision for self-defense. It certainly puts lie to the claims by anti-gunners that nobody is coming to take your guns. David.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is there is precedent on this, and it comes from the same state in the Circuit Court, 7th Circuit. And that, in essence, said that, yes, they can legislate and ban assault weapons. There's a United States Supreme Court case, Heller, that dealt with handguns out of D.C., and that did not squarely answer that question. So when this court is going to have to decide, they're going to have to look to that 7th Circuit precedent and they'll have to follow it, and this is a constitutional law, therefore.
Well, David, one of the crazy things that I was reading about in this case is that one of the plaintiffs actually, he lived in a neighboring town where they passed a similar ordinance. So he picked up and moved because he didn't want to get rid of all of his guns. He's an instructor. He is a licensed and permitted gun owner. So he moves to Deerfield Village, and now they have outlawed, the reason he moved there. This is what he said. He said to require lawful owners who have been background checked multiple times to dispose of lawfully owned property is not the way to do this. We are literally the safest members of your community.
Yeah, here's the interesting point about that. He should move and go somewhere else.
He's going to keep the gun laws will follow him.
Keep on going. There are a number of states that outlaw assault weapons, and particularly in this state, not every single municipality has this ban. So he should pick up and leave.
Okay, Emily, this is what the village attorney said when this was introduced and they voted on it. He said, it's my opinion, it's entirely lawful. This draft ordinance under the Second Amendment as a valid regulation of assault weapons and as a valid home rule ordinance to amend the village's prior regulation of assault weapons to ban assault weapons. The possession, manufacture, and sale of them within the village of Deerfield. He says it's going to hold up to legal scrutiny. You heard the case that David cited.
Right. No, this ordinance is undeniably unconstitutional, and here's why. In part, it defines high capacity as any ammunition feeding device that can accept higher than 10 rounds. So in effect, it includes most handguns. Now, Dave is right to cite the Heller case from the United States Supreme Court, but in fact, it does squarely fit here with precedents. They reasoned that the Washington, D.C. ban on handguns and regulation that lawfully owned rifles and shotguns was unconstitutional because, as they ruled, the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to possess lawful firearms unconnected with a militia for traditionally lawful purposes such as defending themselves in the home. Now, obviously, Washington, D.C. is federal jurisdiction, so in 2010, the Supreme Court ruled that, yes, it does apply to the states, which means here, the states cannot infringe on an individual's Second Amendment right. This will not pass muster.
All right, well, the mayor there says this: we hope that our local decision helps spur state and national leaders to take steps to make our communities safer. She has said, that's Harriet Rosenthal, that she really hopes this will inspire other places to do the same thing. We noted that the neighboring town did it. That's why the plaintiff moved to this one. David says he hopes that it continues on. I mean, Emily, what do you think are the long-term implications of this if the court upholds this ordinance and says, yeah, this is fine, townships can do this?
If the United States Supreme Court upholds this, then yes, we will see that starting to spread, but they won't, simply because, again, merely 7 years ago, the court ruled that this is unconstitutional. And this isn't about, and I will say too, let me interrupt myself to say that the overbroad language of the ordinance simply won't fly either. Given that the United States Supreme Court has issued and ruled so specifically and so strongly that the Second Amendment is protected, there's no way that any exception could be carved out with the broad language that this ordinance states, including, again, that definition of high capacity ammunition. So here, nothing will fly.
Well, and David, I thought it was interesting. I went through and read the ordinance. It's several pages long, and there was a specific provision that used to be in their local ordinance that said there's no legal liability if you use one of these guns for self-protection, for yourself, threat of bodily harm or someone else. They completely X that out. That's completely taken out now. So, I mean, obviously the idea is they say you have to get rid of your guns or destroy them. Police can take possession of them if they're used as evidence and then destroy them. I mean, they're really saying, they're not confiscating them per se. You just have to get rid of them. They'll take them if you don't get rid of them. For a lot of folks, that feels like a real threat to their Second Amendment rights.
No, I agree. But you know what? This is much bigger than Deerfield. This is about the Second Amendment and whether or not it applies to assault weapons. And to rebut Emily's point here, those arguments were raised in the Seventh Circuit case. And the U.S. Supreme Court had the opportunity to take this issue and decide.
Yeah, they didn't.
Cert was denied.
Yeah.
Justice Thomas wrote a dissenting opinion there. They had the opportunity. They passed.
Yeah, we got to leave it there. We'll see, because there are a lot of people who want the Supreme Court to step in on these and to weigh, but without four votes
here
of 4 justices, it's not going to happen. All right, guys, thank you very much. Great to see you tonight.